Hi everyone, I'm Emily and today I'm going to tell you a bit more about toads. So I'm going to tell you some facts and figures all about toads, how you can help toads in your garden and how you can become a toad champion in Essex. I have Toby the toad to help me out along the way. They're warty, they're wide-eyed, they have ancient associations with witches, so a lot of people think they're quite evil. But in more modern times too, we know as Mr. Toad from The Wind in the Willows. Everyone knows about toads. They're an iconic British species. But something that most people don't realise is that toads have suffered massive declines in the UK. We have the common toad in Essex. The Bufo bufo is its Latin name. And FrogLife actually predicted that there was a 68% decline in toads in the UK, and it's predicted to be worse in East Anglia. So these little guys need our help. So toads can live anywhere between 4 to 40 years in captivity has been recorded before. So often they get eaten by predators, but one of their big things that they suffer from is cars. And that's because when toads wake up from their hibernation, they cross the same ancestral paths to get to the same ponds to lay their toad spawn every year. And when they're doing this they're crossing the road. And these toad crossings, they're actually migratory routes because sometimes over 1,000 different individuals can cross the same route. So it's actually a full-on migration that's happening in Essex. But sadly, they tend to cross the roads when it's just rained and it's dark. And a lot of people, as you know, drive really fast and they just don't realise, they don't look out for these little guys. So we're actually hoping right now that the toads might have fared all right because there'll be less cars on the road. But we won't know until we've done more studies. And these guys aren't crossing roads to get to ponds. They're a gardener's best friend. They suck up all the slugs and the insects and pests in your garden so that you don't need to use any pesticides or anything like that in your garden because that harms these guys. They'll naturally do it for you, so you just need a toad in your garden. You know, I said that they cross roads. They don't naturally cross roads, it's because the roads are there. So our landscape has become a bit patchworked. We need to create a nature recovery network. That is what Essex Wildlife Trust and the Wildlife Trust are working towards. We have all of our nature reserves that are havens for wildlife, but we need to bridge those gaps and corridors in between the landscapes. And toads cross between urban and rural landscapes, so they perfectly identify, you know, these migratory routes and the wildlife crossings in our country. And we need to figure out how to connect them together so that they don't have to cross roads. Let me give you a quick rundown about some toad facts. I would not say that Toby is the best representative of what a toad looks like, but you know, you can see the bumps and warts are there, and the big kind of, they're not really gold in real life, they're big golden eyes and the kind of unhappy facial expression that they're known for. And they do have a similar colour skin. They are olivey brown with lots of spots and lots of warts on them. And people think that they need ponds, but they're not like frogs, so they don't have to be in water all the time. They need a pond enabled to lay their toad spawn, which is different from frog spawn because frog spawn is in lots of clumps, one little dot in a big clump, bulbous kind of gooey mess. Whereas toad spawn is actually in lines, and they have these two little dots in lines, and they tend to be long strings wrapped around aquatic plants. Another key feature between a toad and a frog is a toad goes like this, and they hop, which you think they all do, whereas toads, I can't demonstrate, but toads walk instead. They walk along, they don't hop. So that is one of the biggest identifying features. Size isn't a case because, as I said, toads can live a long time. So you can see really tiny ones and they can still be toads. They're just the baby ones. They can weigh up to 80 grams, pretty heavy. And during the winter, they do hibernate. They hibernate in leaf litter, in log piles, or they excavate little shallow burrows in the mud and go into them. And when Toby and the fellow toads are aggravated, they'll puff themselves up. And they kind of secrete a bit of irritant, so you don't want to be going around handling toads. If you need to move them, use a bucket and be careful. If you have to, be really gentle and only do it for a few seconds because they'll puff themselves out and they'll secrete this liquid. It's not good for the toad and it's not good for us either. Make sure you always wash your hands. So this year, we're trying to figure out where are all the Essex toads. We don't really tend to get many records of toads, but they're such an iconic and an important species, and they represent wildlife corridors. And you know, we're really worried about the reports that say that they've had such declines. We want to know what the population is in Essex. So we've been asking our supporters for the last month to record any toads, any toad spawn or any toad crossings they've seen in Essex. The form is on our website. Have a look, it's on the front page, and you can record your toads there. Another thing is we want people to realise how you can help them in your garden. Toads like log piles and piles of dead wood that, you know, don't tend to be the most glamorous of habitat, but they're so good for so many different species and also for the prey that the toad is going to feed on. And although I said that toads don't need to be in ponds all the time, they need these ponds to lay their spawn. They tend to like deep ponds, so if you are lucky to have a pond in your garden, make sure it's suitable for toads, or look at building them. They're one of the best habitats that you can have for wildlife in your garden. And make sure you just have lots of dark sheltered spaces. In the summer, when we have the really hot and dry days, toads can go to them to shelter, but to stay moist. Whilst in the winter, the really cold, long nights, the toad can go in there to stay warm. Here was your toad update for the day. I hope you've learned something new and you enjoyed it. Head to our website if you want to record the toads in Essex and think about how you can help them in your garden. Okay, bye!